Hi knitting friends, my name is Maggie, aka the Knitty Bean, and this is the Beanscast. This is going to be a podcast primarily about knitting, but also sometimes reading and writing. I am an author currently based in eastern Iowa, however, I was born and raised in Jersey. This podcast is primarily going to be a place for me to be able to talk about my knitting projects, as well as what I'm reading or writing at the moment. I am sure that my partner will appreciate the break in the yapping from me about my knitting. This podcast will probably follow the general knitting podcast structure that you're familiar with. I'll be talking about my finished objects, my works in progress, acquisitions, anything that I am anticipating making. If I ever go to an event, I will probably vlog about it. But something to keep in mind, this is a podcast where I'm not anticipating entertainment. I'm not anticipating giving you entertainment or I'm not anticipating to influence you to do anything or be entertained. I struggle a lot with depression, and this is sort of a resource for me to be able to do something to keep myself accountable, to give myself a reason to do something, to find a community that might also be interested in what I'm doing and that I can share my excitement with. I'm not really here to entertain or to give, knitting hacks or hot takes or discuss anything particularly deep or interesting. I'm really just kind of here to talk about what I'm knitting, what I want to knit, and how I'm affected by it as someone who is neurodivergent and mentally ill. I'm not really going into this with a mind to foster some kind of big following or whatever. I really just want a place where I can feel like I'm talking about what I love and what I enjoy doing and having at least some sort of community come out of it. I really love having knitting podcasts on while I'm working on my own knitting. I feel like it sort of facilitates that social aspect. I get to listen to someone talk and give updates about their life and feel like I have a friend who's sitting across the table from me, when in reality I don't have a lot of connections since we've moved here. I'm trying to go out to find local folks and knitting groups, and it's been a struggle, especially since a lot of the time my fluctuating mental health will determine whether or not I get out of bed. I don't know if I will be sticking to any kind of strict schedule when it comes to this podcast. I would like to do it at least once a month, just sort of little updates, what I'm working on, any projects that I've got on the needles, and be able to have a timeline, a bit of physical evidence of the things that I've accomplished, because it's very easy to forget just how much you're doing. And a lot of the time, depression will lie to you about your abilities. And this is me trying to combat that. And I'm trying to show that I have done something and that I have the proof of it. So with all of that heavy stuff out of the way, I guess let's get started with my finished objects. I only have one finished object for this month. I have a lot on my needles that I'm currently working through, and I'll pick and choose what I want to work on. Sometimes I will, on my TikTok, do a roll for knitting where I just let the dice decide. So my finished object for this month is the Herding Hens sock. The pattern is from Charlotte Stone of Stone Knits. It is a motif of this chicken that repeats around the leg and the foot, and you may have noticed my foot is devoid of chickens. I did make one sock where I had chickens all around the foot and the leg. However, it turned out to be way too small for the intended person. It was knit for my partner and he could not get it over his heel, and I also had issues trying to get it over my heel, and my foot is smaller. I knit the largest size for him. I generally go with the medium size. The 64 stitch cast on for myself and the 72 for him. I don't know if it was a mixture of my tension or sizing issues. It might have been just too small for him, but he couldn't get it over he couldn't get it over his ankle. So I knit one where the foot does not have the chickens. It has instead a broken ridge. It has instead a broken rib pattern across the top of the foot and plain stockinette on the bottom. I did do a peasant heel and the toe in a alternating color, and the toe in an alternating color. I made sure to pay special attention to my tension on the second sock that I knit, to hopefully be able to get it to fit over his foot. It was a tight squeeze, and he did say that he felt like he was in danger of ripping it while he tried that one on. So for the third sock, I cast on 80 stitches and then increased to 96. I increased a little bit more for the color work, and I also knit them on a size larger needles. The pattern from Stone Knits recommends using a 2.5 millimeter needle or a US 1.5 for the color work section, and you increase a couple of stitches when you start the color work pattern. We found that the 80 stitch cast on with the 96 color work stitch count worked the best. He was able to fit it over his ankle and his heel no problem on the largest one. I don't know if it is a issue with me. I also sized up to a 2.75 millimeter needle for the color work section while still using the 2.25 for the non-color work sections. I found that let the stitches and the floats stretch the most. I did try to be as conscious as possible about the floats. I did feel like the floats were the reason that it doesn't really fit him. So I tried to knit inside out. I tried to, make sure that the floats were extra long. I didn't tighten anything unnecessarily taut. But I have read a couple of comments on some of the Stone Knits patterns that people have been saying the sizing is off, that they also weren't able to fit it over their heel despite knitting the largest size. I don't know if that's maybe because of any intended ease written directly into the pattern or sizing issues. I know that sometimes the average sizes can differ based on country, and I know that in the US, I'm sure they also run larger than in the EU. But I'm still very proud of how these turned out. They're really cute. I think I made a mistake in deciding that this year all of my friends and family are getting socks for Christmas. And because I am who I am, I personalized each sock to each person, trying to match favorite food, favorite flowers, any kind of item or theme that I know that they enjoy. I have maybe 30 socks to make, and it's May, and I've just finished one. And I'm really glad that I started this earlier in the year, because last year I started my Christmas gift knits in October. But those were all beanies and shawls and things that I could work up pretty fast. But I had a lot of issues trying to figure out the sizing on these socks. And now I'm a little scared about the rest of them, because I don't want them to be a wasted gift. I want the recipient to be able to use them and find joy in them. But if they don't fit and they're not going to wear them and the socks are just going to sit in the drawer, that's kind of sad. So I'm a little nervous about knitting the next handful of socks, because about 90% of my socks are Stone Knits patterns, mostly because I really, really love her patterns. I find them very cute. I find them, they make me very happy when I, just seeing them. And I think everyone who gets one is going to get a kick out of them. I'm hoping that in the case of my partner, this is just a one-off issue. Now that I've found the size of sock that works for him, I think there shouldn't be any further issues. And I think so long as I keep any color work tension as loose as possible, it should be okay. But I have a lot of socks to knit, and I haven't started them. Especially because I've got 4 more chicken socks to make, because the idea for the chicken socks is that they're going to be gifts for my D&D party, because the party has a bit of a running theme surrounding chickens. And I think it'd be really cute for everyone to have matching chicken socks. And I talk a little bit about this on my TikTok, but each chicken sock, they're not all going to look like this. They're all going to have different patterns, different colors. Each sock is going to have its main color be representative of the character, and they're all just going to share the chickens. And I'm very excited to get them done. It's just a lot of chickens, and I spent over a month working just on these socks. They gave me so many issues, and it sort of made me feel a little chickened out, as it were. But I'm hoping that once I get a better handle on my tension and I'm more used to knitting the colorwork socks with a looser float, they should turn out okay, and I should be able to get through them relatively quickly. I have so many, y'all. I think I've said that like 3 times. But that is all for my finished objects. So let's move on to my works in progress, of which I have many. I have a cast-on problem, I think. I have 7 projects currently on my needles, and I keep casting on more because I want to keep casting on new projects that strike my fancy. I have a few that I relegate to focus knitting, so something that requires a pattern that I need to pay attention to. I have couch knits, so things that I can pick up easily, just knit plain stockinette in the round, so that I can kind of keep it as a mindless knit and something that I can just have with me while we're watching a movie or something. I have a purse sock because I don't believe you should ever leave the house without knitting, and I have a pair of socks that I keep in my purse, so that way if I'm ever waiting in line at the doctor's office, or if I am waiting for my partner to meet me for lunch during the day, or perhaps, just because I want to take a minute to myself. And the purse sock is just something that I always have. On the needles, I have a purse sock, I have a sweater, a cardigan, a blanket, an Afghan, and a scarf. That's 7, right? I think so. I'm bad at math. Don't trust me when it comes to math. And 3 of them are mystery knit-alongs. So let's start with those. First up on my needles, I have 2 mystery knit-alongs from the KnotEnufKnitting Ravelry group. The first one is a scarf. It is a cabled scarf where the goal was to sort of learn how to cable without a cable needle. So they're full of left and right crosses, cables that are just 2 or 4 stitches wide. And I went into it trying to use it as a stash buster. I have a lot of worsted weight yarn that I have left over from a lot of old projects, some from before I was even really conscious about what I was knitting with. So I have a bunch of like Red Heart worsted weight yarn that is not the softest. And I have a lot of leftovers from other projects where I use Lion Brand. I use Lion Brand yarn a lot last Christmas for a lot of the projects that I gave to friends and family. So I have a bunch left over that I wanted to work through. So this is the KnotEnufKnitting Cable Scarf Mystery Knit-Along. There are 16 total clues. We got 1 every Monday for the last 3 months. There is still 1 clue left as of this recording. And as you can see, I decided to use a different color yarn for each clue, repeating them eventually. I did make the mistake of starting the repeats a little early, so you can see that some of it doesn't match entirely, but I don't really mind. It's just a scarf for me that I'm going to be wearing when it gets cold, and it'll most likely end up getting stuffed into jackets anyway. This was really just a way for me to attempt to stash bust, despite the fact that I bought new yarn for the project. I'm not good at not buying yarn, especially since I've started buying yarn because it's pretty and not having a project in mind. I really tried to stick to only buy yarn when you have a project ready to go. That didn't work. But there is 1 week left on this mystery scarf, and I'm very excited for the last one and to be able to finish it up. And even though it's going to be June when it's done, it gets very cold very early on here in Iowa, so I'll probably start wearing it in September or October. And I am looking forward just to have a nice long scarf. I have a couple of cowls and infinity scarves that I made years and years ago, but I wanted a straight worked flat scarf, and this fit the bill. The next mystery knit along that I'm a part of that is also from KnotEnufKnitting is the Mystery Afghan. It is also a cable project. It has a repeating cable motif for each clue. We are currently on clue 4, however, I've only just started clue 2. I kind of ended up having a larger priority on some of my other projects, and this just sort of fell to the wayside. But now that the scarf is almost done, I will default to the Afghan now as sort of a background knit. But it is only a project for me. It's going to be a big rainbow Afghan. I'm going to have it on the couch or in the bed for when it gets pretty cold, or just while we're watching TV and we want to snuggle. And I am very excited for it. I do, however, feel like I made a mistake with the yarn. The suggested yarn for this project was Knit Picks Swish Worsted. And I've realized over this past year that I really love Knit Picks yarn. I have so much Knit Picks Stroll. That's what the chicken socks are made of, Knit Picks Stroll. And I absolutely love it, especially because previously I had only worked with Patton's Croy sock yarn, and I found it and I found the yarn to have a pretty rough texture, and I didn't really enjoy knitting with it. But the Stroll, it is baby bottom soft. I loved it. At the start of the Mystery Afghan knit along, I decided that I wasn't going to go with the Knit Picks Swish. This was before I had really realized how much I would wind up loving the Knit Picks yarn, especially for its cost point. I know the Swish is about $8, $8 US a ball, and I had decided instead of using Knit Picks, I was going to use Loops and Thread Impeccable. It was on sale at my local Michael's for 50% off, so it was $4 US per ball, per skein. Per hank? No, it's not a hank, it's a skein. Skein? It was like $4 for a skein of the loops and threads. It was on sale. And at the time, I'm really trying not to spend too much money on yarn, especially because I don't currently have an income. I have been struggling to find a job, and without one, I feel like I can't really justify spending a lot of money on yarn for myself. It's a completely different story when it comes to getting yarn for gifts, because I want the gifts to be soft and squishy and lovable and feel nice to the recipient. I don't often bring that philosophy when it comes to getting yarn for my own projects for myself. And that isn't to say that there isn't quality, affordable yarn. I love Lion Brand Heartland specifically. I have so much of it, and it is the majority of what I used in the scarf because I love that it's so soft, even though it is an acrylic yarn. I don't mind that. I really had not cared much about wool previously, and the acrylic works just as well, especially because it can be easily washed. So I don't feel the need to give particularly high maintenance yarn to friends or family, because I'm not giving them a gift, I'm giving them a chore when it comes to having to clean their knits. The Afghan, each section of the Afghan requires about 300 to 500 yards of yarn, depending on the size of each individual clue. I had bought 2 skeins of the Loops and Thread Impeccable in each color, and it has been more than enough for my purposes. I unfortunately find the yarn itself to be a little itchy to work with, a little rough on my hand. I find that the longer that I knit with it, the more irritated my hand is. The one that is holding the yarn kind of becomes a little rough and irritated, and I don't know if it's because I have grown so used to working with merino that the switch back to this acrylic has been so jarring. And I feel like given what I know now about how much I enjoy Knit Picks yarns, I would go back and get the Swish worsted instead. Hopefully that would have been a better knitting experience. However, this is one of those projects where I'm more excited for the final product than I am for the process. There are a lot of knits where I love the process of knitting them. I love knitting garments because I just love having that easy, in the round, mind empty, be able to really knit without looking kind of vibe for them. Or color work with its detailed patterns. But anyway, that's sort of like what I'm thinking about the Loops and Thread. Maybe I'll make another Afghan with Knit Picks Swish worsted. However, one of my acquisitions today is for specifically a blanket. So I guess, and it's not Knit Picks. It's not going to be made with Knit Picks. It's going to be made with Loops and Thread because, of course, I had to go to, or it's going to be made with Lion Brand because I still have so much Lion Brand left over. I'll talk about that during the acquisitions. But those are my 2 Not Enough Knitting mystery knit-alongs. I'm very excited. The group that I have been with have been lovely, always so encouraging and sharing thoughtful advice. I highly recommend if you ever want to do some kind of fun cabling project. I've noticed that a lot of the patterns from Not Enough Knitting are cable focused, and they have a couple different ones from past years. I highly recommend them. I have found them to be fun and engaging and create really cool shapes. Like this scarf just has so many different kinds of shapes. Like I never really considered like what a cable might be able to look like. I can't really see it that well on that one, but I've always only ever kind of considered cables in their traditional twist on a sweater look, and being able to see them show up all these different patterns has been really fun. My next knit along, it comes from Expression Fiber Arts. I'm doing the mystery knit along for their Purport shawl. The Purport shawl is a lacework circular shawl worked on, I believe these are 3.75 millimeter needles. Yes, worked on 3.75 millimeter needles. I've never made a circular shawl before. All of my shawls have either been triangle or rectangle. So this is a fun experience for me. I have been liking it a lot. And Janica York Carter, who is the designer behind this pattern, has a whole bunch of absolutely beautiful lacework shawls in their pattern library. I highly recommend it, especially if you really love tonal shifts, hue shifts throughout the entire pattern and the delicate lace work that I think she's really known for. And her hand-dyed yarns are also gorgeous, but I can't afford them. And this is partially where my Knit Picks love has sort of come out. But this is the start of the circular shawl. I can't really show it. I'm in the middle of clue 5. And I can't really put this onto barber cord yet to kind of show it off. And I have a relatively short needle currently. But it starts with this circular, it starts with this, It starts with this circular flower motif, and it slowly expands with lacework and with lacework in eyelets and knit twos together. And the process itself, the patterns itself are relatively easy and repeatable. I don't find them very complicated. They're a lot easier and very accessible, honestly. I've always been afraid of lacework because I always thought it would be way too complicated to accomplish. But the pattern that we get each month from Expression Fiber Arts. I hope the mic is not picking up all that construction. Because of course they decide to start jackhammering now. Ugh, anyway. But the patterns that we've been getting from Expression Fiber Arts are relatively simple. A lot of it is knit 3, yarn over, knit 2 together, sort of short, memorizable pattern repeats where it just kind of flies by. And it is a little fiddly in terms of its fingering weight yarn, so it's very thin. It's easy to drop and lose stitches and difficult to pick them back up because of the nature of lace work. But I'm really enjoying it. The pattern did call for some of the pattern originally calls for Expression Fiber Arts' Luminous Quill, I think is the name of the yarn. It is beautiful, shiny, gorgeous, but I can't afford it. So at first I decided to do Drops Alpaca. However, I realized later that Drops Alpaca is classified as a sport weight. It was a little bit too thick for the pattern. Also realized that there are a lot more subtle color changes as each clue was released than I had anticipated. I found that the Drops Alpaca didn't have nearly as many color choices as I would have liked, so I decided to do Knit Picks Palette instead. It is a 2-ply fingering weight wool yarn, I believe. Is it fingering weight? It is a 2-ply wool fingering weight yarn. It is a little rough from what I've been seeing, and I think after this project I might not gravitate towards 2-ply again. I do quite like a 4-ply fingering, like Knit Picks Stroll that I've been using. And I probably should have done Stroll to begin with. However, this was before I really knew how much I would love it. But the palette colors come in a much wider range. So like you see, it goes from this light purple to this mauve color to a lilac, and then it goes to pink and silver. Oh no, did I drop? I did drop stitches. Uh-oh. Shoot. Fix it real quick. What am I missing here? Just gonna keep that there for now. I'm not gonna touch the shawl again because I lost stitches and now I have to fix it. Anyway, I'm really enjoying it. I'm looking forward to having this completed shawl. I really am a big fan of Janica York Carter's lacework designs, and I'm sure it's going to look beautiful, regardless of my, once again, probably poor yarn choices. And that brings us to my 2 garment knits. I am knitting a sweater for my partner and a cardigan for my grandmother. So I had planned to do a couple of sweaters for family members, either for birthdays, Mother's Day, just random gifts instead of just specifically Christmas. This was before I had decided on the Christmas socks adventure. And I had wanted to try making a sweater before I make a gift knit. So I did the step-by-step sweater by Florence Miller. I did one first for myself as practice. I finished that. I'd be wearing it, but it's currently 70 degrees and I am sweltering right now. And I decided that I was going to make a matching sweater for my partner. We're both going to have the striped step-by-step sweaters. Mine, I chose black and gold, and for his, he's decided to do silver and green. We picked up the, oops. Oh no, my ball, it unwound. Time to fix and wind a ball, do. My partner picked silver and green for his in a not so subtle attempt to reference our Hogwarts houses. However, I'm steering a little bit away from that description just because, you know, J.K. Rowling's a TERF. We don't fuck with TERFs here. And so it is my bumblebee and my snake sweater. But I have finished mine, and I decided to cast on his when I wanted to have some kind of like plain stockinette couch knit. And I have split for the sleeves. I have gotten 2 stripes on the body done. I need to do another, I think, 10 centimeters on this one before it's done. I opted for the folded collar, and I opted for the German shirt rose in the back. My partner does prefer a looser neck fit. I do as well. I don't like things hugging up on my neck. It feels very claustrophobic. But we're going to have matching sweaters, and it's going to be super duper cute. And I'm very excited for us to be able to wear them together to Christmas. But both are step-by-step sweaters, and it's going to be very cute. Oh, where did the... No, motherfucker. Not another drop stitch. Bitch. No. Where did the other... I lost my stitch stopper. Where'd it go? My guy. My dude. My pal. Oh, well. I'm sure I'll find it eventually. It's just a shame. So both of these step-by-step sweaters are knit in Lion Brand Heartland yarn. We picked them up on sale at Michael's a couple months ago, because Michael always has them on sale, and it's great. And these sweaters are kind of the reason I have a bit more left over of the Heartland yarn. I bought 2 skeins of the gold for my stripes, and I did not use the second one at all. So I still have a whole yellow ball of Lion Brand Heartland. I wonder how much of the gray or the silver and the green I'll have left after my partner's sweater is finished, but we'll see. My next garment is the Carmen Cardigan by Audrey Borrego. This is a free pattern now. Audrey has decided to stop making knit patterns, so she made all of her patterns currently available on Ravelry as free downloads. So I picked up the Carmen Cardigan. This is what I've got so far. It's a little hard to see, but this is the back right here, and these rib sections are the sleeves. It's a 2x2 rib for the sleeve sections, and I've just joined in the round. I'm still doing raglan increases. I believe I have about, I want to say 10 more rows of raglan increases to finish before I'm fine to just knit the straight stockinette. I am making this for my grandmother. My family and I kind of came up with the idea. We thought it would be real cute for me to knit something for my last living grandmother. And I have decided to make the Carmen Cardigan. She's a gardener, so I thought the flower motif would be very cute. I am knitting this in Plymouth Yarns DK Superwash Merino in the colors Cerulean and Natural Heather. Cerulean is going to be the main color, and the Natural Heather, which is sort of this creamy off-white color, is going to be the contrasting color. I'm sort of guesstimating her size. We didn't really want to tip her off to the fact that I'm making this for her. So I'm just kind of going off. So I'm just kind of using my mom's measurements because they wear similar sizes in store-bought clothes. So I'm hoping that it'll fit just fine. The pattern does require buttons. I haven't purchased them yet, but I am thinking of making them sort of white or creamy ivory colored buttons. I will have to find them either online or at my local yarn stores. We'll see what's available there. But I was really scared of garment knitting for a little while. I thought it would be very complicated. I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to understand gauge and how it factors into the sizing. But once I sat down for a minute, and Florence Miller's video on the step-by-step sweater did help a lot, actually. And I did end up watching a couple other videos about raglan sweaters, about gauge swatching, about knitting tension and everything that would be required to know going into a garment knit. And it is, once again, something that I found a lot easier than I anticipated. I built it up as this sort of complicated, advanced technique that really boiled down to knowing how to make stitches. That really just kind of boiled down to regular knits and purls and knowing how to increase. And if you know how to knit and you know how to purl, I mean, even most of them don't require purls. It's all knit in the round. I do have one more Expression Fiber Arts pattern that I'm currently working on. I've joined the Read It and Whip knit along that Expression Fiber Arts is doing over on Ravelry, and the knit along is to make their Ambry blanket, or really any blanket, but the promoted pattern is the Ambry blanket. And while you're knitting it, you read or listen to a book. So you're reading a book, you're knitting, and it is totally up my alley in terms of what I'm looking for in both of my hobbies, right? So I'm knitting the Ambry blanket, which is a worked flat mosaic type pattern. You're making the triangles in alternating colors. The original pattern calls for 6 different colors. I didn't really want to do 6. I thought that would be too many. I just wanted something that in 2 colors, something that was a little bit brighter than some of the suggested yarn colorways, and I am so bad at picking colors and matching colors. I don't really have an eye for it, but I do know that I really like the combination of blue and white. So I have purchased instead, I have instead gotten the Cascade Heritage sock yarns. These are 75% merino, 25% nylon. I have them in Caribbean and limestone, and I do love these colors together. Like, I just think that they look beautiful. And I am listening to the audiobook for Sabah Tahir's Air while I'm knitting, and I'm a little over halfway through, and my brain is boggled. There are so many theories. I'm connecting the dots.
I've connected the 2 dots.
You didn't connect shit, but
I've connected them.
It's such a good experience. I love it a lot. Highly recommend the book. I love Sabah Tahir's Ember in the Ashes series, and even though I didn't technically finish it when it was coming out, I think I stopped at the 3rd book and I hadn't had a chance to pick it back up since. I'm also borrowing the Ember in the Ashes series from my library so that I can listen to those audiobooks, because I've heard the audiobooks are also excellent. I read the hardbacks. I read a physical copy as they were coming out, and I have the first 3, I think, up to Reaper. I don't remember. They're all hiding in boxes after our move, so I have no idea which ones I've got or where they are exactly. But I remember liking the series a lot, and Air takes place, I think, 20 years after the events of the first series. So it is related. We see a few of the characters from the original series. I do feel like I have done myself a disservice for not finishing the first series before starting this one, but my friend Jess said that Air is amazing and I need to listen to it, so I am. And I also kind of matched the colors to the cover. I think the blue and the gold is gorgeous, and I really should have gone with gold instead of white, but I was sold on the white. And I am about 2/3 of the way, a third. Again, bad at math. I'm about 1/3 of the way through the blanket. I have done about 3.5 triangle pattern repeats. There are 11 total triangle repeats. So do the math as you will. It'll probably be more correct than whatever I've got. But I look forward to knitting it every time. I get to listen to a little bit of the audiobook, and the narrators are great. I really should listen to a lot more audiobooks when I knit, because I do struggle a lot to find something to listen to while I'm knitting that's engaging, but not something that requires my full attention. A lot of TV and movies, you got to look at the screen, and I'm not very proficient at knitting without looking at my needles. I can do it a little bit, but I feel like I'm about to lose a stitch every single time I knit anything without looking. But an audiobook is great. You don't have to look at anything. Though I do find myself thinking a lot, man, I would really like if this had subtitles. And then I remember what that's supposed to be. Yeah. And finally, on to my last whip. This is my purse sock, the sock that I've kept in my purse for a couple months now. I got myself, I treated myself to some interchangeable lace needles. The Knit Picks Pro, the Knit Picks metallic lace needle set. And at the same time, I also treated myself to the ChiaoGoo 9-inch sock knitting needles to see which I would prefer. I do like the 9-inch circulars for color work, and I do love the magic loop method for socks. I keep dropping DPNs. They keep getting in each other's way. I think I have too long of DPNs for sock knitting. They just kind of, I can't handle all of the needles. So this is my purse sock. I am knitting this in Patton's Croy Adrift. This is the colorway. I didn't realize just how neatly these would stripe up. I'm really loving it. This is also my initial attempt at doing the peasant heel, which I have successfully done on my herding hen socks. But I am planning on knitting the toe and the heel in this contrast gold color. This is the Dreams colorway in, I think, Treasure. I don't have the tag with me anymore. I think I lost that in one of my boxes because I just have so many sock yarns, so many. I have like 2.5 boxes of just sock yarn. Knit Pick Stroll, Valley Yarns, Huntington, a whole bunch. Anyway, this is the sock that I keep in my purse. I started this back in March. I had a temp job at the time, so I would take it with me. I would knit on my lunch breaks and get a couple of rows done. I'm not in any rush to finish it. This is a sock that it is for my partner. I do like making gift knits. I find that I can justify yarn purchases if it's a gift knit, but also I just much prefer knitting for a friend or family member than I do for myself. I don't know if it's because I consider it selfish to knit for myself, even though that kind of thinking is not very healthy. But for me, I find joy in the knitting process, knowing that when it's done and I can give it to the recipient and their reaction will fuel me forever. I love seeing their reactions to what I give them. I love knowing that they're going to find use out of it no matter what it is. So I like making gift knits, even though I know a lot of people would argue otherwise. And that's totally fair. I mean, you find whatever reasons you want to knit. It is, your prerogative whether you do gift knits or not, whether you knit for yourself or what kind of knits you make. Is just whatever brings you joy, and this is what brings me joy. That is it for my works in progress. My goodness, that was pretty long, I think. I don't even know how long I've been recording. I've had to stop the recording a couple of times because of my phone and and getting phone calls in the middle. Anyway, next up is my cue. So what I've got next for knitting, I do want to cast on the next sock that I got to work on for my Christmas adventure. I'm going to be knitting the Raindrops on Roses sock by Charlotte Stone. It is beautiful. I've got the Knit Pick Stroll Heartfelt red tonals. I think it is a beautiful red and sort of purpley tonal shift. And it is going to be paired with Knit Pick Stroll in Horchata. Both of these are 75% superwash merino and 25% nylon. I'm debating whether I want the red to be the main color or the horchata to be the main color, because this is going to be a gift for my mom, and I know she prefers a more understated and I don't want to say cool, but like she prefers an understated look. She is much more into like tone beige and neutrals. And I'm afraid if I knit the main color in red, it might be too bold for her. Though I don't anticipate her wearing this out at all. I know this is probably going to be just something that she can wear around the house on cool evenings. So I'm still kind of in between what I want to be the main color. We'll see how I feel when I actually do cast on. But that is the next immediate thing on my queue. After that, I do have two things that actually tie into my acquisitions. So I'll talk about that a little bit at the same time. I mentioned earlier that I have a lot of the Lion Brand Heartland Aran Weight yarn left over from previous projects, and I still want to use them up. I want to bust that stash. I have roughly 800 yards in leftover yarn from projects, and I purchased, how much did I purchase? What is that? I purchased about 1,200 yards of Lion Brand Heartland today at Michael's, which doesn't really adhere to the stash busting thing. Yeah. But I wanted to knit a blanket. So on Memorial Day, we went out to the park near our home and we sat out on the grass. I got to knit a little bit in the sunshine. We had a barbecue. It was fun. It was just me and my partner. And it was a very nice, lovely, chill day. And it made me realize that I really enjoy going out to knit in the sunshine. We have a balcony and I do like to sit out on there when the weather is accommodating enough. But I also want to go out and, take a walk down to the park and sit by the water and have sort of that moment in nature and still knit. And when we went, I had to bring beach towels. I had a couple of we have a couple of beach towels, and we use those to sit. But I was thinking the whole time, oh, it'd be so nice if I had a nice squishy little blanket to have to put on the grass. And I know that Rachel and Renee from the Table 10 podcast are doing a stash bust along relatively soon. Probably, it might have already started by the time this video goes up. I don't really know what my editing timeline is going to look like. Honestly, this is my first ever video. But I have a lot of stops and starts, so probably going to take a minute. But Table 10, Rachel and Renee from Table 10 are doing a stash bust along, and I'd like to, as part of that, make a blanket. I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to make. It's probably just going to be like either a garter stitch or a 2x2 rib, something to give it a little squish. But I found two free patterns that I really gravitated towards. I found the Campfire Blanket by Seth Richardson and the November Evening Throw by Stephanie Ritchie on Ravelry. I like the ribbing pattern from the November Evening Throw, but I like the stripes in the Campfire Blanket. And the Campfire Blanket, I think, is just a straight garter stitch. Well, that's fine. I do kind of like the ribbing a little bit more. It adds a bit more definition, I think. But it really depends on how the yarn is looking. Because I do have a lot of the Lion Brand Heartland yarn is a bit of a marl. For instance, one of the ones that I purchased today is the Grand Canyon colorway of Lion Brand Heartland, and you see it's a bit of a golden brown marl, and I have a few blue and greens that kind of follow that same patterning, and I'm not sure if a ribbing would be taking away from that, if it would make it a little bit too busy. But I've got a bunch of blues, greens, a gold, and I got two of these sort of goldeny brown Heartlands to make into that blanket, and I hope that I can use it as a sort of picnic blanket whenever I decide to go out and knit when the weather approves and it's not 1,000,000 degrees outside, or I don't get attacked in the face by bugs. I have a lot of blankets I want to make. I like blankets, even if they take forever. I have this one blanket that I started when I was in college. It's 2013, I think. This is when I first learned to knit. My college roommate taught me how to knit. And I dropped it and I picked it up every couple of years, as one is wont to do when you have ADHD and your hyperfixations change on a seasonal basis. But sometime in that time frame, when I was first learning to knit, I knit a scarf, I knit a hat, I knit a couple different things. I decided that I wanted to make a very thick, chunky blanket. And I found a blanket called the I found a pattern called a blanket for seriously cold people. And it's made out of like super bulky yarn. It is a 2x2 rib. It was specifically called for Cascade Magnum, which was the first time I ever purchased Cascade yarns. And I did always think of Cascade as this sort of very expensive yarn brand. And they can be, but they also are rather affordable compared to a lot of other yarns, especially when I think about hand-dyed. But I purchased, I think, 6 balls of the Cascade Magnum. And the pattern just says repeat the ribbing until the blanket is as large as you want. And I think somewhere along the way, sometime between 2013 and now, I lost one of the balls of Cascade Magnum. And I had a lot of issues with this blanket. It pilled like crazy. It shed like the fluffiest cat you'd ever meet. So I was just constantly covered. It's a light blue, sort of bluish. It's sort of like this nice like crystal blue color. And I was just covered head to toe in blue fluff. And I still have it. It's somewhere in my office. It's currently hiding underneath some boxes. And I have, I think, about a ball and a half left of Cascade Magnum. I swore I had 2, but I think I lost one. But the problem with it is that it's so big. It is so heavy. It broke my needles on 2 separate occasions, and I had to super glue the needle tip to the cable twice. And it's a fixed circular that I'm using. It called for, I think it's US 13. A very thick needle. I don't remember the exact size. I have to find it. But it just became such a problem because it was so heavy, and I didn't like flipping it and, throwing around 100 pounds of yarn while trying to finish this blanket, even though I know it would be so cozy. Hopefully, if it's ever stopped shedding, I'll have to see if a soak will actually fix that if I ever finish it. But I did learn this year how to mirror knit, so I won't have to turn it anymore at the very least when I eventually pick that up. But I have a lot of blankets I like to make. They do take so long. That is probably my longest running whip, honestly, is that blanket. And I'm always telling myself, I'll finish it by then. I'll finish it when my partner wants to go to college, and then he goes to college and we move, and it's not done. And I'll finish it when we go to Iowa, and we move to Iowa, and it's not done. Who knows when I'll finish it. Regardless, lots of blankets. I'm very excited for blankets. The other yarn that I bought today is this Loops and Threads Delicate DK. I have been craving knitting a tee or tank. I've really been wanting to do the Tolsta tank, I've really been wanting to do like the Tolsta tee or something, and it calls for DK weight, and the only DK weight yarn I have is 100% cotton. It's either the Lion Brand 24/7 cotton, or it is Hobby Friends 8/4 cotton. And I have different plans for those, but it's not a shirt quantity worth of yarn that I have. I have little 50 ball skeins for small projects that I'm doing with color work, and I don't have enough for a tee, and I don't really want to buy more cotton because the 24/7 cotton, while affordable, I don't like working with it. I find it very stiff, and it's like a mercerized cotton, and I don't really like it. And I don't have enough of the hobby cotton to work with, and I haven't worked with the hobby cotton yet, but it feels a lot better on my hands than the 24/7 cotton. So I was in Michael's today, just sort of browsing, looking to see how much Heartland yarn I would need to pick up for a blanket, making generally bad decisions about spending money on yarn that I don't have money to spend on. But I found the Loops and Thread Delicate DK. I picked it up just sort of on a whim. You know, you go to a yarn store, you can't help but pick up the balls of yarn. You got to see how soft and squishy they are. And I was really surprised by how soft this yarn is. It is a fully acrylic. I believe it is 100% acrylic. Where is it? It's an acrylic blend, it says. 70% acrylic, 30% polyamide. And I knew I was not going to make the tee with wool. I wanted to do it in some kind of cotton or linen. I was looking at the linen quill from Pearl Soho. I was looking at Filcolana. I was looking at, what else was I looking at? Knitting for Olive. But a lot of those are expensive options. And once again, I'm broke. And yet I still spent like $50 on yarn today when I don't have $50 to spend. Not really. But I picked this up. It's in the colorway Neutral Gray. It's kind of got like this soft, almost spearmint green look to it, more than like an actual gray. And I'm torn between doing the Tolsta tank, not the tank. I'm torn between doing the Tolsta tee or doing a Audrey Borrego tank. There is, what is it called? Audrey Borrego has a couple of different knitted tees in her available patterns, and I was thinking of doing either the Centaura or the Oread, but both of those call for, I believe, fingering or sport weight. But the Lucerne tank does call for DK, or you can use DK. The Lucerne technically calls for knitting for olive pure silk. It calls for knitting for olive pure silk, and it's meant to be held double, but that's just a DK weight because the pure silk is a light fingering. So I just got a DK. I don't really like having to buy double the yarn. I'm already a plus size person. I wear usually 2X in store-bought clothes. I have a 47-inch bust, so I'm usually knitting pretty up there when it comes to sizes in patterns. So I'm already buying more yarn than your average knitter. And I can never really justify purchasing double the yarn to hold something double, or even purchasing merino to hold it for a sweater. And I'm sure it feels lovely, and I'm sure that the drape is gorgeous and the fluff from the merino makes it super soft, but it is a lot of money to buy a sweater. It is a lot of money to buy a sweater quantity's worth of yarn for someone of my size. So I try not to if I can help it. So I usually, if a pattern calls for holding something double to achieve a thicker weight yarn, I will just buy the thicker weight yarn, like the Loops and Thread. So I am planning to knit up I think I'm going to go with the Lucerne because it's free and I don't want to spend money on a pattern right now because again, I just spent like $50 on yarn and I should not have. I thought I had a coupon. I read the coupon wrong. It was not for 20% off the whole thing. It was for 20% off one. Oops. But that is all for my acquisitions. That is also all for my next anticipated projects in my queue. What else is there to talk about? I mean, I'm reading Air by Sabat Tahir when I'm knitting the Ambry Blanket specifically. I like to pair it together. It kind of creates that memory in the pattern. So when I'm knitting it, I keep thinking about the book and the series in general, and it kind of captures the emotions between each stitch. I am currently listening to, what did I just start? I started something last night. And I listened to like 3 hours of it. What was it called? Oh, Case and Callender's Infinity Alchemist. A queer, I think polyamorous? I don't know if it's polyamorous. At least trans. It's got trans characters. fantasy in a sort of secondary world with alchemy is magic and, going to different dimensions, and it's got, rivals to lovers kind of vibes. It's very good. I could not stop listening to it. I almost wanted to keep listening last night, but it got to like 1 a.m. and I needed to go to bed. I'm also reading Circe by Madeline Miller. I borrowed that from the library. That was part of a book club last month with a few of my friends online. And we were picking up Circe, and I never finished it on time. It was supposed to be the April book club book, and it is currently May the 29th. I have 2 days left of May. I did not touch the May book at all, which was supposed to be something that we picked on our own to match the theme. The theme was something that's been on your TBR for over a year. I was going to read The Sunbearer Trials by Aidan Thomas, but I kept pushing off picking it up, and before I knew it, it was the last few days of May, and here we are. Regardless, I am listening to Infinity Alchemist. I'm really enjoying it so far. I like the magic and the world building, and the characters have such strong voices. I also picked up And They Were Roommates by Paige Powers. That came out this week, actually, and I have the audiobook. The second that I got the notification from Libby saying, oh, your library has added this book, bam, borrowed it, had it, downloaded it, and I'm probably going to pick it up after Infinity Alchemist, just because my hold on Infinity Alchemist ends before And They Were Roommates does. But I have a lot of other books that I'm reading. I'm rereading the Hunger Games series. I picked up Sunrise on the Reaping. That's the one, the Haymitch book. I picked that up, read it, cried, and immediately needed to reread the entire series from the start, so I picked up the Hunger Games books. I am about... Oh gosh, I know what part I'm about to get to. I'm about to get to the Phoenix scene in Mockingjay. Like the Phoenix scene. And I'm not ready for all that heartbreak again. 14-year-old me was devastated when that book came out. No, was it 14? High school me was devastated at that scene. I cried for like 2 days. And I'm probably going to do the same thing now as a 30-something-year-old. God, Finnick deserves so much better. Suzanne, why? What else am I reading? I have a lot of things that I'm trying to finish and read, but I keep not finishing. I've had the first Mistborn book for so long. I had borrowed it from Libby and my library in physical form like 6 times, never got around to finishing it, had to keep returning it. I eventually got tired of picking it up from Libby, not reading it, and having it returned without me ever touching it, that I just bought an ebook version. And then I also borrowed the audiobook version, so that we could listen to it on the road when we went to the Madison, Wisconsin alpaca fiber festival last month. We listened a little bit there, and I'm at the last 10% of the book, and I haven't finished it yet, and I don't know if I will, because my partner loves Brando Sando. He loves the whole series. He devoured all of the books in the span of a couple of weeks, and he really wants me to finish it. And I'm the one that turned him on to Brandon Sanderson books, but I have been trying and failing to read Mistborn for so long. I don't know if I will finish it. I have heard that the first few Mistborn books are some of his weaker books, and it gets better, but I am finding I have a lot of things are rubbing me the wrong way when it comes to his writing, that I don't know if I am that particularly interested in finishing it. Is it getting too dark in here? The sun is setting. It is getting a little bit dark. I'm sure is going to be noticeable. Anyway, I have a lot of books to finish. Haven't finished them a lot. I have a problem with getting through so many. But I believe that is everything for the very first episode of the Beanscast. Thank you for joining me today, knitting friends and beyond. I'm very happy that you're here. I hope that I have brought you a little bit of comfort while you knit and worked on your projects. Whether or not you found it coherent is a whole other issue. I do ramble quite a bit. Anyway, this has been the Beanscast. I have been the Knitty Bean. Thank you for joining me, my knitting friends and beyond, and I'll see you next time. Bye!